Okay, should be that. Hi, Kenny. Hi, Mr. Jones. How you doing? Could be better. Way too much to do currently. Getting overwhelmed. Oh, I hear that one. I have to come up with a new design for an entire system by today that I have no idea how it works. And we've also used it in 3 different ways and abused it in a couple of ways. So I got to figure out all the use cases and the design and then put it together for a proposal tomorrow. So yeah, I hear the overwhelmed part. Nothing quite like like nothing on your plate and then way too much on your plate. Okay. So drink water we finished up yesterday. That's in a good place. I'm sorry to hear getting overwhelmed, Kenny. But you can only do what you can do, and all the stress or anxiety in the world won't change it. So okay. Okay, so we're going to go to Kafka extensions first. And we're going to see if we can make this horrible API. I mean, this great API that I'm really not ashamed of. Okay, so I'm procrastinating a little bit here on my main project by doing some side library work, because I do need to get this version of my Kafka extensions into the main project, right? Because right now it's relying upon a built-in one. Dog style problems. I probably have also problems. At least one doctor maybe found something after work that is not working. Good cause of time pressure and a couple of other similar things that hit me like a truck. Sorry to hear that. Sometimes I no. It's you know. I'm a big believer in kind of focusing what I can control at any one point, and I think I've had overwhelming moments in my life. I've had, I mean, right now I'm worrying about my sleep. I'm not getting a lot of rest. I'm feeling exhausted. There's all sorts of other stuff going on, right? And I kind of do what I can when I can do it, right? So like the streaming thing, that's my focus, right? I can't do anything about other things, so I kind of push forward on things I can control. And that's the way I handle a lot of those things. Like, how do you eat a cake one bite at a time, sort of thing, right? So, yeah, that's all I can say about that. Is like just try not to focus on what you can't control. Focus on what you can, and move forward bit by bit. And don't forget to laugh. Okay, so main project. If we go to Liquid Sky, new window. So I have all these. I have all these services at this point, and this is only going to get bigger, right? This is not going to get any smaller. And for each one where I use Kafka, I have this list of topics. right? Right now, this version is using this component, this set of libraries, right? This all this Kafka stuff is using these pieces. But realistically, I want to drop these and use, pardon me, I want to use my library that I've built. But before I do that, right, because this has got outbox and stuff, right? My current version in here does not have the outbox stuff, and I really should have the outbox. So I need to do two things. First, I need to build a more configurable topic solution, because again, storing those topics in every single project becomes a pain. This list is always the same. Well, it's not always the same. Project to project, it could rely upon different things, but this isn't. Right now, this isn't determining the topics that I build, I don't believe. I've got to validate that before I go too far ahead. What it's doing is saying, here's the ones I care about. And, if I go to try and publish an object of this type, it will actually get routed to this topic, right? So this is the actual topic name. So what I want to do is I want to move that into console, because, and I think it's kind of a useful feature, or a key value store, really. I could use all sorts of this. So my all sort configuration for my routes is all stored in here. And it kind of makes sense if I store the topics in here. That would be pretty cool, right? So I could pull those through here. So what I'm thinking of is building, and this is where I get into a mess, because I'm still trying to get my head around how to do this thing. I like to play with APIs. I like to make sure that I'm trying to build something that reads correctly and all sorts of stuff. So here I'm thinking about, how do I configure this, right? So with default configuration would just bind the regular JSON application. And I think that is actually from app settings, right? But a bigger problem is most of the configuration is actually per instance, right? It's not actually Decidious, congrats on being considered for mod stars last night. That was just the icing on the cake to that entire mess. I've never seen anybody able to derail a stream quite as much as Defaults can routinely on that stream, and that was just the icing on the cake. Hi Deformer, how you doing? Welcome. So yeah, that was that was fun. Dear. How's it going? Welcome in. Nice. That was some crazy diversions. Yeah, I've never seen anyone be able to divert a stream in quite that way. Okay, so nice. So let me demonstrate a little bit of the application here for the purpose of anyone new to the stream. So Wednesdays through Thursdays, I work on my main application, and that is this Agile project management platform, as I refer to it as, or Liquid Sky. So Liquid Sky is aimed at being a platform to aid in gathering and delivering software requirements, gathering software requirements. I should get One Line as my PR representative, because he's way better at describing this project than I am. But the sole purpose, or the sole guidance for me, is that I want to be able to develop a platform that developers can receive requirements through that have been well thought out and well planned and get out of their way, right? So that developers barely have to touch this software. It's developer focused in so much as the aim is to be able to get requirements from product and from management, improve visibility to everybody else without the developers getting involved, and then get the developers focused on the task that they love doing, which is the development part. So over the last couple of months, actually the last 8 months now, I've been working on this platform. And I restarted my computer before the end of yesterday. See, even deflux is in my my test data. So the goal is that basically you'll be able to gather requirements. Product management will be able to gather planning items. They'll be able to add requirements to the system. Should see a button available. Should see a button on the screen right below the header. Sort of gather these up. And the goal will be that you'll be able to build the stories from these requirements. So this will be a kind of explorative element for product to go through, demonstrate to developers, talk through, attach screenshots, notes, etc., and then generate actual useful stories with actual requirements that have been built out. You'll be able to assign projects to things, and that's kind of why I'm procrastinating right now. I'm kind of rethinking this projects concept in terms of how the planning goes, because not sure what project is from those labels. Well, you don't need to right now, but I'm considering what it means to have. Why isn't that loading? Interesting. What it is to have those. Morning, by the way, Dota. So I am procrastinating a little bit on that main piece right now because I'm kind of really thinking about how that applies, because there's a few elements that to me right now going through it don't make sense as I've started to think about the pieces going forward, how it groups it. I got onto the topic of, well, I need to kind of create this friendly identifier that would be able to be shared. Well, that kind of is a big challenge with the way that I've got the project structured right now. So before I go too far, I'm thinking about that. There's themes, where initiatives might go for a long time. Themes would involve most all the devs in a sprint. You mean kind of like the focus of a sprint? The goals. Yeah, initiatives will be intended to group up planning items, so that you might have like the a Salesforce initiative where all the stories and all the planning is evolved around getting the Salesforce items in. The thing is, when it comes to initiatives kind of cross projects essentially, because you could have many elements that are required across your organization, depending on how, again, one of the hard parts here is I've got to be careful that I'm not, let me think about how to put that again. Sorry. Organizations organize in a variety of ways, right? They align groups differently. They consider work differently. And the problem is when you're introducing tooling, to give any sort of flexibility is hard because you don't know how that organization is actually organized. So to your point, Dota, about projects, fresh project, marketing, delivery, customer support, right? Are they groups? Are they projects? That's why they're labeled that way, by the way. Because again, I'm actually considering what it means to have a project. What is an actual project? Because depending on how big or small your organization is, the organization of your actual work is going to change, right? You might have 3 products. Well, again, that use of the word project, right? A project has a start and end. Well, depends on what you define as a project, right? An undertaking required concerted effort, an extensive task undertaken by a student or a group of students. Okay. A plan or proposal for accomplishing something, right? So the definition of a project has no inclusion of the word start or inclusion of time. So the that's a difficult one. So again, that's why I'm pausing and rethinking this a little bit before I go too far ahead, because again, right now the idea would be when I go to create a planning item, I can assign a project to it, right? That project being assigned to it will give that project, that planning item, a reference, right? And that's the way it works in Jira. If you actually assign a work item to a project, it gets put in the board, it gets an identifier, and that's okay. But I just want to kind of firm up that idea, right? Because you can't move an item from one project to another, or can you? Right. Also, depending on project, don't forget in the actual story side of this, well, this planning item isn't intended to be a sprint board. This would be a Kanban board anyway. The way I'm thinking of this is more Kanban for the actual planner, for the actual project manager themselves, or the management team. This would be more Kanban, the planning item stuff, in terms of it would be kind of pending, in progress, ready, right? Sprint boards and stuff would become part of the stories piece, right? And again, that's why I'm building this out as planning versus stories, because I want this to be very focused on actually gathering requirements and not on actually getting the stories done. Well, for this, Kanban makes sense because there's kind of no there's no defined time limit, right, on the planning, right? The planning just has review dates. Again, don't forget the review dates concept in here as well. It has review dates, which will trigger alerts, and this kind of show. Then the planning board for this would be Kanban, because it would just be like, okay, these need to be worked on, these are being worked on, and these are done and ready for stories to be produced. Yeah. Well, because again, and again, when we're talking about the development side of this, when we go into the developer piece, right, when we go into the stories, and I really should have my my pictures up, right? Let's get them started. From a developer perspective, right, when we get to the stories piece, again, what I'm trying to build here is a system that gets out of the developer's way for the most part. So the developers really do care about Kanban, because it's what do I have to do, what am I doing, and what have I completed, right? the business really cares about the nuances of where things are, which is again why I'm putting the review stuff in there. Why I want to be able to have multiple teams involved with any given story, but visibility across all the teams, etc. That's kind of a key goal, because it's not the developer that cares about sprints, it's the business, and that's a kind of way of controlling, okay, like, here's how much we want to get done, and here's how much we did get done, and it's kind of all the metrics and stuff. And again, my entire purpose of this is to help the developer just get to the job that they need to do. So from a developer's perspective, a Kanban board, even in a sprint, the Kanban board is all they really care about. So because we over time we've kind of we edge towards pleasing the business, and that's what I mean. Story points are a way of protecting us as developers from the dreaded time limits, right? The deadlines. Scrum is there, or rather Agile in general is aimed at trying to avoid waterfall, because business practices create problems, right? When they start saying, oh, well, we want this in 2 weeks, well, then you've got crunches, and that's not healthy. The value in the sprint 2-week timeline is retros every 2 weeks. Kanban, it'd be less clear than to retro maybe. Well, in this version, right, in here, you don't retro on the planning. Retro would only be on the actual work produced, right? Because that's, again, you could retro, but I'm a big fan of not necessarily doing retrospectives. I'm a big fan of change what you need, like the Kaizen, right? Or rather, not even Kaizen. It's more like constant improvement, right? If something's not working, change it now. Don't wait 2 weeks to change it. Identify the problem and solve it quickly, rather than actually deferring it for a conversation. Because retrospectives are useful in terms of, oh, how did that work actually go with hindsight, right? What do we do? What could we do differently? But I'm for things like, oh, well, we need to get this done, and this shouldn't be done here, and we shouldn't be doing this. I think kind of tackling those on the fly is yeah, I know I'm fully aware of what retrospectives, but again, it requires an honest team, and it requires a reflective team. And most teams, from my experience, aren't that way. They don't like doing retrospectives. I've been on one team that even tried to embrace retrospectives, and we did 3 or 4, and then it was like, why are we doing this? We're just saying the same things over and over again, because, again, the business and their practices didn't change, right? So, and also, you've got to be careful. I have been in a team where the retrospective came across as criticism, and people took it personally. If something's reappearing sprint to sprint to sprint in the retrospectives, are you really improving? So retrospectives are a difficult, they're a necessary piece, I think. You should retrospect. You should look back on what you've done and where you could improve and where you can change. But you should also be mindful of, are you affecting change, or are you just kind of whining about the same things over and over again? So yeah, the project's concept isn't going away. It's just I want to review it and make sure that I'm kind of also pressure testing my idea with it, right? Right now, this kind of works. Just came in, so I might be a bit off. But after a project went to actual excrement, I sat down and wrote an actual post-mortem. Like, wrote it down, made it official. Anything, how are you doing? Oh, good day. Sorry. what went wrong, where did it go wrong, what can I do next time to not end up there again? I mean, well, again, if you're constantly evaluating practices, right? If it's like, oh, we need to our pull requests need to do this, or we need to get pull requests fixed within 2 days. Be right and spill coffee. I always, if why wait 2 weeks to say we need to get pull requests reviewed within 2 days? Why not, as a team, agree on a cycle mid-sprint and get that done, right? If it's we need to, our naming conventions are off, or we need to refactor this code, otherwise it's going to be a problem. Why wait until the end of a sprint to reflect back? I get the officiousness of saying, oh, well, we don't have the capacity, but a little bit of extra work, a little bit of push could make all the difference to the team's productivity. Then maybe you can agree upon how you're going to tackle that. And even if you come up with a plan mid-sprint, you've at least come up with a plan. You're not waiting for the 2 weeks. Right. Yeah. Retrospective is good to look back on things that worked and things that didn't. But if there are things that are causing you pain, waiting 2 weeks to mention them and bring them up and then never do anything about them, retrospective requires action as well, right? Oh, you should always find something positive to be positive about. If you can't, that's a really bad sign. No, I'm not saying you shouldn't do retrospectives at all. I'm just saying that a lot of what goes into retrospective could be handled day to day. So what are we working on? Well, it's kind of, this is entirely in the vein of this product, right? So conversations around project management, around software development, around anything like that, I have no issue with. I'm a bit of a pooper. I haven't actually stopped by before. Thank you for the follow, I appreciate it. All good. So on this topic, I have spent many years working in software, and I have seen all sorts of different projects, organizations, etc. And one of the things that bugs me and I feel very passionate about is the entire, how do we get information out of people, gather that information into meaningful, understandable, Thinil is also a very great streamer, also a .NET streamer. Would recommend a follow if you are not already. Builds some amazing applications. So I really do care about productivity of a developer, right? So that's kind of why my attitude towards the whole retrospective has evolved into where it is, because we often talk about stuff. We often try and I'm going to allow that through, but the language in this stream generally, I just keep to a nice level. So this project is aimed at, is my take on that entire thing, right? And I want to address some of those issues. So I have, over the last 8 months or so, been building this system where I do have a distributed system. We have many components, and right now I'm focused very much on this planning component. So the goal of breaking planning out from stories is to try and aid in the requirements gathering phase, right? Because a lot of the tools out there kind of focus on, here's the work you need to do, get it done, right? So if you've used Jira is this massive application that just is not as helpful as it could be a lot of the time. I'll go with that, right? And as developers, we're kind of focused on keeping track of everything. So, how many times have you heard where are we with X project, or where are we with that thing, or where did that go, right? Because we build up these backlogs of work, we build up all these different things, we have different dependencies on different teams, etc. And what I want to do is I want to focus this software on getting rid of that need for the developer to keep track of those things, and get the developer to be productive, able to develop software, and everybody else can see what they need to from the system. So the concept is, when you add a new planning item, right here, you kind of give it a title description. You also set a review date. Review dates will go on everything, and a review date cannot be skipped, right? It has to be set. And what that will do is alert people who care about this thing to the fact that the review date is due and things need to happen on this, right? So it's a constant reminder. It's not a due by or whatever, it's a review date. So if we want to say, okay, I want to add a new planning item, this should be reviewed in 2 weeks, right? We might mention people, etc. And we say this has to be looked at tomorrow. It's assigned to me and it's on this project. When we create that, right, this will go through the system. Ultimately, we'll get an alert in a second, hopefully, if everything's working properly, that has been done. And then we can add requirements to this. And again, this is meant to be for product team. It's meant to be a discoverability aspect. It's aimed at being about the discovery of the requirements, like kind of talking it through without it actually becoming a story, without it actually becoming something that is defined as work to be done. The idea of the planning item is to kind of weed out those requirements and be able to review with the developers. Oh, well, we think that is this and this needs this, and ultimately attaching images and notes, etc. These things. And then from this planning item, one or many stories can be created and take those requirements with them. So the team can agree upon what this is before it actually becomes a piece of work that's sat there. So if this sits there for 6 months because no one's working on it, the review date will constantly remind management or whoever that the review date just keeps coming and going, coming and going, coming and going, right? But it will not be the developer's job to remember where we are with this piece of work. This piece of work can evolve independent of sprints and whatnot, right? So this will ultimately be more descriptive, and right now it's just this. But ultimately, you build a list of requirements of this item, and again, the developers can review that, say, oh, well, actually, those two belong in one story. That other one is actually another story, so we need those as different stories, and there'll be an entire piece for promoting this to become actual stories. Stories, again, will get review dates, and a lot of what I'm building here will be built around notifications. So a very rich notification system of what do you care about, when do you care about it, do you care about pop-up alerts? I would imagine something's not running properly because, yeah, the broker's not working. Oh, let's go in there. So that will be lost because Kafka wasn't up and running. And that's kind of why I'm diverting today for a couple of days. So my system relies quite heavily on distributed tools. So I use Kafka and I'm using Service Bus for some pieces. That. And then what I'm working on today is I have an extension library for introducing Kafka, and I'm trying to figure out how to build my topics list as an actual, right now, console key value store, so that I can actually maintain this list once and then have every application pull it from there. It'd be nice if each system could be managed in here, but the actual consumers and producers in each part of the service very much depend upon independent settings. So this can be globalized, but this sort of stuff Not necessarily. So I'm taking a few days to divert to propping up this project, this extensions library, so I can actually start to use it within the main application. Right now, this is just an offshoot of the main project. But then the idea will be to pull this into the main project once I've got these pieces. So what I'm working on right this second is how to get the configuration loaded in the current form, and then I can figure out what the console version should look like. But designing Fluent APIs. What? Nothing's running. I've got a feeling that Ryder introduced some quirks. So yeah. And as always, again, any conversation around, software development, agile practices, all these sorts of things, I'm more than happy to divert to discuss. It's always useful to get other people's opinions and experiences, especially when I'm building something like this, where I'm kind of in my own bubble, right? I have my own experiences. I have my own thoughts and opinions. I need to build this software to a point where I can demonstrate it to people who do these jobs and then have them run through it and tell me where the holes are, right? As I go, if I could collect other people's experiences and thoughts and opinions on how software should be developed, then I can see about how they match up to my own, how they differ from my own, what other things I could consider as I build the software out. So I'm always open to discussion. If the stream becomes 2 hours of talking about this, that is absolutely fine by me, because it is something that is growth professionally as well. I keep checking YouTube because yesterday the chat panel didn't pick in point YouTube chat. So yeah, I stream on Twitch and YouTube at the same time, and all the videos are available on YouTube later, which reminds me, I need to change that. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty easy. Yeah, it's and also all the VODs are automatically there on YouTube as well. So yeah. I did do Kick for about 2 weeks, but then I gave up on that because it's way more of a faff than I wanted it to be, and no one ever watches on Kick. So what I'm trying to do right now is just kind of figure out how I want to word this, how I want this to flow, so that it's obvious, right? So add Kafka gives me a Kafka instance builder. On here, I've got configure. And then I've got Kafka configuration. See, the problem is I've got to pull some of it from app settings all the time anyway. Apex, good day. How are you doing? So using app settings is kind of meh. And with default configuration doesn't make much sense. I'm not bad. It is Wednesday. We are almost at another weekend, so I'm kind of happy with that. So what I don't think I want to do is, so again, right now, there's 2 extra elements here, right? There's actually I should probably show the Kafka configuration. So producer and consumer are key value dictionary, sorry. Right. Key value pairs. And that is because Kafka itself, the Kafka library itself, just feeds them straight through as configuration. And there's a whole set of documents on how to configure Kafka. But these are very much dependent upon the system that I'm putting them into, right? So if I go to my infrastructure consumers here, you'll see that this has the topics. All the topics are still there. I have a producer because this also publishes as well. So I need to know which servers to use for producer. And there are other settings available, right? But these are actual Kafka settings, right? So there's no extra fanciness around these pieces. But this actually is specific to this consumer, right? The group ID is important because that group ID is for this consumer type. The Bootstrap servers, I probably could move out to be a general Kafka setting. It is common, but then I'd have to worry about merging that in. So I leave that there for right the second, and auto offset reset right now. And what that says is when the consumer starts up, go to the earliest offset in the actual stream. If you can set that at latest, what happens is when Kafka starts up, it will start listening from then on. So even if there was 50 messages sent while you were offline, it will start from the next message that comes in. If you set it to earliest, it'll go back and read those 50 messages that were sent while it was offline. So generally I want that, right? So it catches up on itself. But again, these are kind of configured per service, right? So the infrastructure, the view, tickets has consumers as well, right? They look the same, but again, this is work items, right? So, and again, this doesn't need as many topics, but again, that isn't what's building this, right? So this consumer, when it starts up, it will add the worker service. This worker service will take the iEvent consumer, and that is a dispatching Kafka consumer right now, which will go through this list of consumers, which right now is yeah, I'm gonna have to change that. I was worried about that. Sorry, I built it so that it actually uses the topics and adds a list of consumers for each topic. So I'll have to change that again somehow, even if I do the console configuration this way, because that version right now will say, okay, well, I've got all these topics, I'm going to create consumers for them. And that's how it should work. So if I do it that way, I've already broken it. And again, if you have any thoughts, questions, opinions on what I'm doing, you're more than welcome to share. This, again, the stream is not about me being productive with this code. I do work on this code off stream. But I'm more than happy to talk about it and talk about the software in general. So from an API perspective, that is not as clean as it should be. No, hold on. No, it does work. So what happens is when I'm building this, I actually say which receivers I want. So actually, it doesn't really matter. The topic configuration can be global. That isn't. I'm working at the same time with a stream on the second one, but I try to throw an eye every now and then. No worries. I appreciate it. Thank you. I hope that I can aid in your productivity as well. Okay, so the add event receiver is what's using that. So I don't actually have to worry about that because I am actually specifying which topics I care about when I do this. They just have to be in the configuration. So that's okay. So when I add the consumer, again, you have to configure this per instance anyway. What this does is it will load up. It will go and get the Kafka configuration. Right now, this will get all the Kafka configuration. So maybe I want to consider, yeah, maybe that API needs to be considered a bit different then. Because they're kind of independent right a second. Yeah, I got my project site, personal site to be more responsive now. Nice. It's that is quite the battle to chase down that. Huh. 2/3. So specific sites would get hit way more from mobile than others, like Facebook and Instagram. Instagram, I can see. I mean, if I'm using Instagram, I'm normally on my app on my phone. Okay, so I already changed the API a lot when I did this because the current form allows me to do that, whereas the new form I'd have to do services.add Kafka and then do the rest in there. Okay, so I can't. That doesn't function the same way. But that being said, so the reason this guard happens is because the outbox is also a publisher that you can register. So when you're using the outbox, it's its own type of publisher, and it extends Instance Builder, so you can register that, but you can't have more than one registered. So you have to. So if you've already registered the default, you can't register that. So the outbox, you say add Kafka, add outbox publisher using memory outbox with default publisher. And Kafka publisher is ultimately what is actually doing the publishing. Right now, I don't see any benefit in doing this. And again, this will guard against those topics. Like building a meaningful API here that also makes sure that I've got to configure the right things. Kafka at default publisher, because again, I kind of need to. What do I want to write here? So for this, Mobile users, I think, often have different needs than web users for a lot of applications. Well, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, etc., they're focused on those short form videos for the most part now, right? That's become the thing. But I use mobile. I watch shorts on YouTube all the time. Well, I'm mainly in the house, so I don't have to worry about it. I'm on Wi-Fi, but I'm normally using the apps, whether they be PWAs or not. I don't know, but um, that experience works better on a mobile device. Sorry. Most apps don't have the appeal of the ones you listed either. No. Like this app, not really going to be a mobile friendly app, right? The work aspect of it might be, right? What work do I have to do? Might actually be kind of a useful mobile experience. But this piece doesn't work well from a mobile perspective, right? So to me, responsive, like I don't care. It works right this second as a in a mobile format almost, right? Worried about that requirement gone missing. Oh, because I reloaded. I know why. Right. But realistically for me, tablet and desktop is probably the more realistic use case for this application. If I'm building a blog, maybe that's a different thing. And I do fully intend to try and find a UI UX designer to see if they would actually consider doing a workup once I've got enough in there and what they charge me, and I'll save up. AOAA. Nice. Yeah, if there was a streamer that wanted to do something as a project, that'd be a way. But but considering I'm not going to ask someone until I've got a lot of functionality in here. At least I've got the design for the other two items in here. There's going to be a lot of work, so I might have to save up my pennies. Yeah. Like if there was a streamer that did UI UX design, that'd be awesome. I could collaborate because again, it would be a good demonstration. But that would be capitalizing as well. So, I was watching someone last night do web development stuff, and it was pretty fascinating as well. So from an API perspective, what I'm trying to consider here is how do I build off of this, right? I kind of want to force you to do the configuration first. So doing it this way, allowing the default publisher and the dispatching consumer and even the register off of the instance builder is no worries, Doctor. Thank you very much. Have a great day of work. So not me then. um, nah, the whole UI UX experience thing is I don't have the time or energy or mental capacity to go off and spend great deal of time learning how to do all that in it well enough to make a decent looking UI. What I'll need right now is a productive UI that kind of gets the concepts across. Looks generic, looks kind of terrible, but it does do the job right. And then at least I can visualize the rest when I present it to someone. Because I think hiring someone is the only way I'm going to make the application look like a professional application. So what do I want to write here? What do I actually want to write? If I was doing this for real, what would this look like? So in a consumer, do I want... What is this doing? Why does this think it's actually in an editing mode? No. So I kind of need to at least force... Okay, that's driving me nuts now. There is no overlapping files in these systems. Oh no. That's fine. All my intelligence is gone. Here it's fine. There's my receiver. This one's working fine. So add Kafka. What would be a nice way to do the configuration here? I mean, a similar pattern might work. So if we did builder.configure, and this is an instance builder. Do I flip those two things? So do I give it configuration builder? And then provide an instance builder as part of that. Again, just trying to think of a logical API here. This project is actually a NuGet package. So my general attitude towards this project is it might not all be open source, but the pieces that I kind of build structure around, or I use repeatable pieces like the Kafka components, the messaging components, I will build open source libraries for, so that they are, at least I'm sharing some of the core technologies that I build to support me. Some of this is done. There is a big library around Kafka. I haven't actually used it, but I do know there is a big library that people use around Kafka. I just don't like the API, if I'm being honest. I think the way that you do achieve certain things Just doesn't make sense in that code base. Never actually used it. I love using Kafka for what I'm doing here. So in this project, I'm using Kafka here. So basically, I break up the system into components, right? Mini monoliths, I suppose. And then each piece has an API, and as I add information into it, it produces events, integration events. Those integration events publish Kafka pieces. These get published to Kafka, and I have a GraphQL view database that picks out those and reconstitutes them into its own GraphQL specific database. So then my client is being built off that. So it is true CQRS, I suppose. The benefit of using Kafka here is if I want to add Elasticsearch down the line and add a search layer in here, I can do that because I could consume those same events. I can do more. I can add reporting. I could export this information to a analytics platform. I could do all sorts of stuff with it. So Kafka is something I've definitely learned to lean into a lot because it just gives me more options later that I don't have to worry about right now. And I decouple the application in a really flexible way. Right? So each of these components has its own data store. So any services or pieces that work within this component actually use that same data store. And then I can extend my system out. I can build extra pieces, and everything just gets produced to Kafka. So it's working pretty well. So the goal of this library is very much to try and simplify that. And Outbox is something that I have on the mediator components actually for the notifications, so that I don't have, so I can still use transactions properly. I had to have an outbox there and a worker service processing messages there. But I need to get this in good shape so that I can have the SQL outbox for this, and then I can have that resilience on my Kafka messaging, because the biggest weakness is right now I send a message, and if the system isn't up like it wasn't before, there was a Kafka message that should have got sent, but because Kafka wasn't running, that message got lost. The system doesn't collapse, because it shouldn't collapse, but I still lost that event, so I need the outbox. But it's interesting, you have a system that's built for resiliency, but you need an extra piece to make it resilient. And all you do is kind of push the single points of failure around the system. So I'm thinking that I kind of flip this a little bit. So if that's a configuration builder, so if that's a Kafka configure, everything will break now. Right. All of these will be broken. So this is the first one. And then I kind of want to say so I don't have producer and consumer, then topics. And again, I'm doing a lot of work here for something that I don't really need to do. Again, I'm procrastinating, but I'm giving myself enough time to think about the larger problem I have, or the larger design issue, and how I want to tackle that. So this is worth it. And again, I do need to get this library in. I need to start building my application around this piece rather than actually my roughly placed version right now. So these 3 projects should get removed. And I've got a whole mass transit piece to worry about later, but anyway. So what happens if we do, so now this builder here is our configuration, right? So this is configure dot. So if we do, so if we default configuration pulls it from app settings, so let's call that right. Then that takes an instance builder. No. Oh, hold on. What if add Kafka return a Kafka instance builder? What if it did that way? And then here, add Kafka. Okay. Add dispatching consumer. Okay, that works. From an API perspective, that's nicer. Because now we add Kafka and that returns as an instance builder, and we give it a configuration builder. Okay, I can get behind that one. That reads. Configure with default configuration. And that really means load everything from app settings. Using from. Don't know why you need to do that, but whatever. So if we had like use app settings, and that could be, so you can control that part. I'll default to that anyway. And then you can do a default publisher, a dispatching consumer. Okay, so that does work. Let's remove from the Kafka instance builder. Let's remove that one. That doesn't make sense anymore. So we're getting there. Cleaning up this API. Again, if you're new to the stream, you have any questions, thoughts, opinions on what I'm doing, you're more than welcome to join in. If this looks confusing at all, but you're interested, you're more than welcome to ask. So at Kafka, we can pass a configuration builder. If we did, as if we do public static That's an action, that's a delegate, not a type. So that's what's wrong with that one. Yeah, because it's I need the action. That's the problem. Oh, hold on. I can potentially do that, right? So public static action default equals I. No, I still need an action. What am I trying to do here? What do I want to write? Essentially, I want to do. No, you can't do this anyway. You can't do that. That can't work because that's a builder is of type action. And that takes the builder. Default reference type, or But hold on, I'm being dense. That can be null if builder null. If builder else that's how we do it. We don't need to be clever. And again, I can switch that out by moving that into here as some sort of default, and then so basically, if we give it an actual builder configuration, we'll call it. Otherwise, we'll just call use app settings. So that way, you can still get away with that. Right. That's the key there. It's just from an API perspective. If I'm relying upon the fact that I'm using the configuration locally all the time anyway, then that's okay. I want that option still. Because what I can do is, before I go to the extent of getting all the console pieces in place, I can just swap out all the code that I use for add Kafka, make sure the application runs properly still, because this will load that entire Kafka configuration, which again, I still need to produce this in some way, shape, or form. So now I need to worry about the, so we have the configuration builder using app settings. What do I do with the rest, right? I need to consider I don't want this to know about console, right? This shouldn't know about console. Console is going to be an extra library, right? So if we go to here and add a new project, hold on, opening. Did I put everything in source, or did I make a mess? I put everything in source. Okay, so new project, source, and this is going to be tbd develop dot Kafka. This is getting messy. I kind of want to make this configuration .console. And what I really should do is make some of these pieces again come from configuration, or move them in the namespace. Probably the namespace. Now I did have, I think I created a contract already for this, iTopic settings provider. So this settings provider, the way this would work is do it this way. Infrastructure. So it's called, actually it's the Kafka configuration builder extensions, really. Public, static. So this will be public, static. Yeah, we'll go with that. So we extend the extensions library. So the way this works is, that's why I do it. Okay. So what I tend to do, and I think it was on here as well, this method is for this purpose. So on here, I pass the services into each object, right? So I pass the actual service collection I'm working with. What it means is if I extend that and I have an instance of my builder, I don't have access to my service collection because I've kind of moved it away, right? This gives me the ability to still register other things. So like this here, I need to do builder.register, right? And this is services goes to, right? So I'm not having a fun time with that. So then this is services. Interesting. So do I want to do it this way? So the configuration builder, my default configuration builder using app settings will pull through that. Realistically, my producer and consumer configuration being in console would not be productive because I would have to have producers, and the problem would be that I'd have many instances of pretty much the same thing, right? Bootstrap, like app one, right? So this would be repetitive, and I think storing them in the actual console configuration, unless I created other key values, right? But again, I think it would be very repetitive and not worth the effort to do that. So at the very least, I want the topics, right? So do I kind of create some sort of console builder where I can say, okay, get the topics from this key? Yeah. Um, hmm. What do I do here? What do I want to write? So the way this would work would be, we'd say configure.use console. No. Using console. But I call it here, I call it using apps. Okay, using app settings. Okay, so it is consistent to do it that way. And what I expect to do would be to do, this would be, that'd be the key and the key value setting from console, right? I get to learn all sorts of cool stuff here. Like, how the heck do I use HTTP during a configuration build? So the only way I could do that would be to do it on resolution rather than actually registration. So when I resolve it, I can get an HTTP instance, and so I have to register an HTTP client here as well. That's quite interesting challenge. um, console. console client takes an HTTP client, and then public. That'll work. It's like it knows what I want to do. So this is correct, right? If I go here, I tested this. Where did I test this? Link pad. Yeah. So I can load the configuration. So what you do is you do actually that, right? And that will load out the configuration as JSON. So you can test that easily by going to because that's in there, not in there. So I go to that. I get the raw JSON out there. So that's possible. Okay, configuration. What I'm wondering about right now is whether I want to call that console configuration or whether that is actually my topics, because that's an object with a array called. So everything's infrastructure here. I don't know why I'm doing that, because everything's infrastructure. So if we create, let's just create that type for right now, console, right? Public. Import type, extensions, configuration, topic configuration. Yeah, that's fine. This one's the new syntax. So this is not that, and that's just that. I'll use the var keyword that Mr. Joy dislikes. We'll worry about. I get the warning there. You shouldn't really be throwing an exception because it's kind of generic. I apologize if you're in ads. I need to do a ads thing in StreamerBot, I think. I'll give that a second. That's that. So now in here, worry about that in a second. No. or not. Kafka configuration builder using console. So I need to do two things here. First, I need to register an HTTP an HTTP client. This is the provider. So the first time I go in here, I'll retrieve this. So if I have the HTTP client registered, I'll be able to get that client. And then I'll need to figure out. This isn't perfect. That'll work for this second just to stop it whining about things. So what I'm thinking is I need two pieces of information, right? This goes away, essentially. We do have a console configuration in the main application, but I don't think it's necessarily what I want to do. Shared console. So I do have a console service configuration, but again, this doesn't rely upon like I've got a dependency problem right now. I don't have console as a component of this this set of projects, right? Maybe this is not Kafka extensions. Maybe I need to build something more generic as a thing, because if I pull in the console pieces or rely upon that structure, then I've got another challenge because they're not related. But I could give it if this service address is what I think it is. So I'm using console for two things. The first thing is the configuration for Ocelot. Well, it's kind of one thing. I'm using Ocelot as my API gateway. I'm using console for the configuration of Ocelot. So what happens is each of the services is registered with the how do I term? This is all pretty new to me. Ocelot. This is HashiCorp. Not Ocelot. Console. Service discovery. Service networking, identity based. So the way I'm using it right this second is when I have a new service, I configure it so that when it starts up, it actually registers itself with console, and it gives me some health checks, etc. So I can actually keep an eye on the service, the services a lot as they stand. It also has a key value store, and Ocelot, which is my API gateway, uses that to store the routes. It also uses the services here to resolve its names. So when I say, hey, this API endpoint, by the way, when you're posting to it, right, actually goes to the planning items API and goes to planning items. So it kind of resolves the address. So I don't have to worry about ports. I don't have to worry about any of that. This kind of resolves it. So it's kind of being used in two ways. I have got so much to learn about all this, right? Without a doubt. And there's a lot more it can do, right? I don't know what intention is. Cross-service intention, okay. That I don't want to do. So using this here, I don't necessarily want to pull the entire Ocelot configuration through. What I do want to figure out is service discovery address is actually the console so I think I need a settings key, right? I don't need to know about console at all. So whether I have console address, right? Or I have the full thing, or I do Kafka. Right? I just need a key for that. So right this second. So from this perspective, I need to do what other information do I need? I need my app settings because again I don't want to pull producers and consumers from console as well because they are very much a per application thing. Maybe if that idea comes to me later on, I could do it, but yeah. And I need the console discovery address, right? So console. There's nothing else about console I need. Do I want to pass in 2 random strings? Again, it doesn't read very well, does it? So we get back into the builder. Public class. I think this is definitely one of those things where I have a hammer. I'm going, everything looks like a nail. I need to do this to learn, to kind of grow in that direction and figure out, okay, because I like the idea of the fluent configuration. It does, like the readability is something that I do like to focus on. And, I'm fully willing to change something. If it doesn't feel right after I've used it a few times, I'm happy to change it. But I'm building builders on builders on builders on builders, right? So that's kind of a measure to me that maybe I'm abusing this a little bit more than I should be doing. So I need to pay a bit more attention. Private string. Public console configuration. And I'm not getting that pattern right because that would be, let me have a look. Action. That's not kind of what I want to do is have this. Not, it's not an address. Could be. Yeah, that's okay for the B address. Hmm. Again, what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to experiment a little bit, think about the API, think about the readability. From this perspective now, what this looks like is configure. Right. So uh, it's more descriptive of what I'm trying to set rather than two magic strings. I'm just not sure about its, because what I need to do then is say, okay, well, turn around and go, and again, I need to register the that's here, services add HTTP client. Well, where is that? Console client. Because this has to be, this is client.base address equals, again, options that like configuration.console address, right? So that would be that. Where's that HTTP client? Kafka, Liquid Sky. Extensions, dependency injection. Where is it? Where is this? This is in Microsoft's funky naming. This isn't in. So Microsoft has several libraries that they publish as NuGet packages where the namespace of the actual code is the same namespace as an existing library namespace, right? So they have no qualms about having multiple libraries published with the exact same namespacing. Which I don't know. I don't think to do that. Because again, I could publish all these as different projects. Nothing says I can't have the same namespaces, right? So even though this is developed Kafka configuration console, I could have tbd develop.kafka.extensions. Whatever, and it all lives in the same namespace ultimately, but they're different libraries. So where is that? So yeah, as far as this is concerned, there's no. Is that registered? Oh, it's because I don't have the actual extensions in there. Service collection is a default. So again, service collection is actually no. Depends the injection. Is it not in there? I thought it was. Is there? Okay. Services that add HTTP client. Where are you? Extensions, dependency injection. Where are you? That's another piece I need to get rid of as well. Extensions HTTP. That's better. But now I need to give this, right? So this is client goes to, right, I need to do something like that. So whatever I build here, that's not necessary because I'm just collecting the information. I kind of am wanting to return sorry, I just caught something. So this isn't a builder. No, that's that. That's that. I know what to do now. Apart from move to the outer scope. Move to outer scope. Rename file. Really? We're going to rename the file that way, are we? Yes, I just realized I've gone full circle. Encapsulate field. What I'm thinking of here is what I pass in is action console configuration, and then I do configuration, and then I do configuration, right? And then here I can do configuration dot address and make them. So that will be public string and for right now, just to move that on. I know that's not, but that's that. And then in here, so now when we've got the client, when we're actually building the configuration, we do get the provider, get required service. So again, required because I really can't, this should fall on its bum if it doesn't actually work. Right. And then This looks the same as this for the most part. The only difference is console here. So we need that. And this is I configuration here. We need to be careful that that doesn't overlap. Thank you for the stream. I have to leave now. Good luck. Apex, thank you very much for coming and hanging out. Appreciate it. Have a great day of work. See you again soon. Looking forward to those streams returning. Configuration. Haven't called it that in a long time. And this way we can do configuration dot Kafka app settings section name, whatever. After May 15th, that should be back. Awesome. So that will bind the regular settings still, but then app configuration dot topics. No. Config dot topics equals client dot get configuration, and then this is going to be, we need a third parameter on that console configuration, don't we? With console address, am I doing too much for the readability here? Like, am I benefiting from this design? Because it's going more and more complicated. Like, there's a big advantage to getting it done, because it means that all I have to do then is go in here, set all these up for all the topics, and I'm good, right? So every time I add a new topic, I just add it in here, and every application will benefit from it, right? I can actually use it immediately without actually copying the configuration for the topics into each piece. So there's a big benefit in doing it this way. But again, this now needs Kafka configuration dot topic. So await. This does not support async, does it? I can't avoid async there. Resolve async. Oh, what is this? Just trying to see if it's actually possible. So the add singleton component of this is not actually the critical part. The add singleton is just it's more, this is resolving it. So this is saying, okay, when you actually go to resolve this, I'm going to give you my provider. The provider has all the service registration in there, right? So I can get access to all the other services that have already been configured. And I can actually pull instances of those things, which allows me to resolve the client, etc. Right? So this is more runtime, and this should only happen once, right? I can solve this by forcing it out. It's not the best way, but from a testing perspective, I'm not really sure I really want to fight much further with this. I can clean that up later. So again, from this perspective, with console address, configure with console address, with Kafka app settings section name. That's a little bit wordy. So using console, I think again there. Console address. Public console configuration. One of the problems here is that you have to do it. I mean, with key configuration with console address. So I don't know how much. I don't know how much I would change this, but I would change this. It's just not. It's not ideal, right? So again, configuration dot key. Getting rid of all the hard-coded strings, getting rid of all that sort of stuff, so that it is at least configurable. I think it's okay for me not to try and force it. This is not an API for someone to pick up and just use, right? This is an API where you kind of have to understand why you're using it, what you're doing, and how it's being constructed. It's an assistance rather than an actual, or convenience rather than an actual necessity. So you kind of know what you need because you're using the library. And I will work on the documentation for it, but yeah. Okay, so let's just go fix these other. So this just changes to be add Kafka. There. Right. Add Kafka, add default publisher. And then this one becomes, this just moves here. Right. These don't change, they don't break. Apologize for ads if you were seeing them. Not that you'll know. So how can I test this? Add default publisher. So produce a sample. So that's how we test it elsewhere. So sample event is in our events. And that's all dependency injection stuff. So we have an event publisher and there's a default one in there. So that's good. And then some sample event. So again, to test this effectively, again, I need to take this topic, let's go here. Let's do create testing topics. And let's paste that in there, and that's going to be topics. So then in the program, we have testing topics. We need to have the producer sample, so we need a producer. Right. And that should publish to a topic if this is actually working. So console sample. I cannot be null. So it got as far as actually producing. It just tried to get a topic. Hold on, what was actually null there? Okay. Let's try that again. So why? Basically relying upon Kafka to do that for me. That's not right. Okay, so what does that configuration look like? Holy moly, it worked. Well, let's not assume it did work. Hold on, did I remove? Oh, it did. It worked. I mean, it worked. I'm a professional. There's no way that wasn't going to work first time with all that code and hacking about. The amusing thing is the producer is the one that's bad. It actually did load this information. So the topics were loaded. So why didn't the rest load? Bind config. Okay, so app configuration. So config is null. And it loads topics. So the part that normally works doesn't work, and the part that is all new and not tested worked perfectly first time. So this bind did not work. That might be a part of it. Add Kafka. I kind of like the readability of that is good. I think I prefer it overall. Okay, it's a console sample. Let's try that once more, and then we're gonna finish up for today. There you go, we got it. It worked. So if we go to here, no, where do we have it? How many windows do I need? Okay. Sample. There you go. And there's our testing message. So it produced a message to the topic. So that is exactly what I wanted to happen, right? It can't do that without the topic matching. So that definitely worked. So it might not be the cleanest, but it does allow me now to create that configuration of topics in one place, maintain them in one place, pull them in one place. So the next piece to this will be to build out, just clean up that API a little bit, make sure that's all built and tested, and then I'll be able to produce the NuGet packages from that. This would be an extra NuGet package, I believe. I probably want to rethink the naming at some point, but this would then allow me to pull the topic configuration from console and pull that through. So yeah, if you have any questions or thoughts on what I'm doing, if you want to know more, this project, this extensions library is on my personal GitHub. You're more than welcome to go check that out. I will get these all committed today and get that working, because tomorrow we'll be trying to get that library in to my main project, which is no easy feat, right? Because it involves pulling out existing libraries. And that actually did post to YouTube as well, so that's nice. That's nice to know that's working. So that is me for now. I will return tomorrow. I'll aim to get some of this done so that tomorrow's stream is a bit more on task for the actual project development. And yeah, we'll make more progress on the projects, on the items here, and start to move that forward. Yeah. It's been an amazing you for now. we missed some words, or thank you. I will take being called amazing. It's fine. But yeah, we're gonna raid Fullbots because it's been a week. So let's go raid Fullbots. Fullbots is developing a game. This is me for now. Thank you. As always, I wasn't paying much attention to myself. Don't say very many clever things. So, let's go see Fullbots. Let's see how he's doing with his stuff. His game looks amazing. I'm really looking forward to playing that more. And yeah, I will be back tomorrow, and we'll do some more of this. And you haven't, I'll be here later on. So, make sure to do that. That covers up the rain message. Come on. That's funny. Okay, thanks. I actually can't get rid of that. That's kind of amusing. That broke me. Don't do a shout out after you've started a raid, because I've now got to wait for the shout out bots to go away before I can hit the raid button. These are the lessons we learn. Okay, I'll take care. Nope. Well, maybe. I'll try that again. Take care all. Thank you. Have a good one.